What's going on, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to a brand new deck profile. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at my updated Marincess deck profile post Cyberstorm Access. This is a deck that I've been really looking forward to kind of revisiting after some new cards have been released from Cyberstorm Access. Mainly one card in particular, and that is the new Ice Jade monster. Some people call it the Water Long Yun. But it's like Ice Jade, Ran Ajarine. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But it's a really great piece of support for this deck. Not only is it basically a 1.5 card level 10 synchro, but more importantly for this deck, it is a free link 2 into Coral Anemone. And I think it's given this deck a lot more options in terms of playability and just the ability overall to, I think, play through more interruptions with how you can kind of play without using your normal summon now, which is really, really nice for the deck. Now, do I think this deck is super, super strong in this format with a lot of people playing Kaijus, Santa Claus, Lava Golem, etc. for some of the more better decks in the format? Maybe not. It definitely will struggle against those types of removal cards, which are unfortunately probably in people's mains or side decks right now. But other than that, I think the deck is still pretty solid. One card combo deck, can't go wrong with that. And it can play a lot of hand traps too, which is always a huge plus, especially in a format like we are in. And I've kind of tailored this deck main extra side to be as competitive as I could possibly make it for this particular format. And I think I'm pretty happy with the build and where it's at. We're going to go ahead and hop into the profile here. But before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to Imperium Duelist. They just released this brand new playmat here. It's called the Forest Nightmare Master Arena playmat, and as you can see, it is Trap Tricks themed. They've got some of the different trap hole artworks on here. They've got like Gravedigger's trap hole over here. I think that's Floodgate trap hole. They've got Bottomless trap hole there up in the top right, and all the other Trap Tricks monster like Mermelio, etc., etc. And I believe Sarah is on the other side. Yeah, you can see the Gravedigger's trap hole artwork there. I think it's a pretty cool mat. If you like playing Trap Tricks, I would definitely consider picking this mat up. It's pretty cool. Very, very soft material. Like, it's very cushiony almost. Very slight cushion. Very soft material. And, yeah, just very, very quality, you know, right? What you would expect from Imperium Duelist. So if you want to pick this mat up and you want to support the channel, feel free to use my discount code WinterKills10 off at checkout to save 10% off your entire order and support the channel in the process. So, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into the list. Alright, so first and foremost, we have 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tang, still one of the best normal summons, one of the best starters in the entire deck. When it is normal, summoned or special summoned, it can send a Marincess monster from the deck to the grave, except itself. And then if it's sent to the grave as link material for the summon of a water monster, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and take any Marincess monster or Marincess card that you find, and the rest go back to the bottom. So it's kind of like a duality once you link off with it, and it's a great way to chain block too in some cases, and just gets you another name or another extender in grave to be able to add back off either Blue Slug or, you know, summon back off of Dive, etc., etc. So yeah, 3 Blue Tang, definitely wouldn't change it, definitely still got to play 3. Moving on, we have 3 copies of Marincess Spring Girl. This card is still mandatory 3 of, in my opinion. It is one of the few, in fact, like the only, well, I guess not the only, but one of the only Marincess monsters that can just like play out of the graveyard right away without requiring any sort of board presence. It's kind of what ended up fixing this deck. Ultimately losing to just a pop on its normal summon. I remember that used to be a huge problem back in the day in this deck, but being able to just banish a Marincess monster out of the grave to summon this, and then have the ability to have a graveyard effect when it's linked off for a water monster, you can mill cards off the top of your deck equal to the number of Marincess monsters you control, and your opponent will take 200 damage for each card sent by that effect. So not only is it good in time, but it's another key sort of graveyard effect when linked, that you can use to chain block, more importantly for your Sea Angel, you know, that searches the spell. But yeah, definitely a really solid extender. Always like seeing it in hand. Definitely want to play 3 copies. And again, another extender / starter that we want to play 3 copies of is, again, 3 Seahorse. I believe in the past I was playing just 2 of this, and that was primarily because the list was more focused on rank 4s, at least establishing, you know, Totally Awesome through Bahamut Shark. So seeing this card wasn't really that fantastic in those particular builds. This was just a better extender than it was a starter. But this build's a little bit different, so I wanted to max out on this card again. Just because, you know, seeing it's still 1 card Link 4, and still a very strong card in its own. Then next up we have 2 copies of Marincess Pascalis. This allows you to recycle back your Marincess spells and traps from the grave, and it can also just summon out another from the hand, get you more bodies on field, and allow you to apply a little bit more pressure too. So definitely wanted to continue to play 2 of this card as well. And moving on from there, we got a little bit of a tech choice here, right? Personal preference choice of mine, and that is to play the 1 copy of Marincess Basilalima. I was playing this the last time I played Marincess, and that was mainly to help have more level 4 Marincess names in the deck, because I wanted to see level 4s more often to make rank 4 plays. You know, seeing a level 4 Marincess paired with a Bishark was a really good opening, so I wanted to max out on as many level 4s as I possibly could, and this just ended up being like the next best like playable level 4 Marincess. Now, this time around, I'm playing it not only because, you know, it's another name, but Ghost Ogre is a very prominent card right now. It's going to be in a lot of people's main decks, if not their side decks, right, for like Super Heavy and Pearly. And that card has a lot of overlap in this particular matchup, right? You know, Ghost Ogre on your Anemone is going to hurt a lot, like, because it has to summon to a zone that it points to in like something like Splash Mage. So, and even sometimes Ghost Ogre on your Blue Tang, if you don't have Dive or Spring Girl in hand exactly, like, you're probably not playing anything past that. And Basilalima is one of the only cards, one of the few cards, I should say, that lets you, like, beat Ghost Ogre, because it says if a monster or monster you control will be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. And then if it is banished, you can target 1 face-up monster you control, it gains 600 attack. So not only does it help bolster up some of your monsters to beat over certain things or try to go for game, but it's something you can easily set up in grave off of your Blue Tang, or something you can summon out of deck via Dive and get this in your graveyard as soon as possible to be able to play around that 1 instance of Ghost Ogre. So, and obviously Ghost Ogre is once per turn, so we're only have to worry about it 1 time when we try and combo. So if you can try to get Basilalima set up in the grave, I think it helps out greatly to play around an otherwise very problematic hand trap. And especially with the Ice Shade monster, it's another discard outlet way to get it in the graveyard, etc. And we have other ways to get it too, which I'll explain later. And then we have 1 copy of Mandarin. Mandarin is just a really good extender. Like, everything in here is a great extender. And the only problem is sometimes is like you need more names, I guess, would be the problem. So like that's why playing like another name like Mandarin that has like a good like extension abilities in the graveyard is nice. And like same thing with Basilalima. Sometimes just more names to put on the field to have different things set up, different like lines of play set up. But this card is great, especially with Dive, like 1 card Link 4. And just a good discard off of your Ice Shade monster. And speaking of Ice Shade, we play 3 copies of Ice Shade Ron Ajurin. And basically, for those that don't know what this card does, it says you can discard 1 other Ice Shade card or water monster, special summon this card from your hand. Then you can special summon 1 Ice Shade token, Aqua, Water, level 3, attack 0, defense 0. And it says while this token is in the monster zone, the player who summoned it cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except water monsters. So yeah, this is basically like Water Longyun, right? You pitch a Marincess, you pitch whatever, summon this, get a token. It's a level 7 tuner body. So you can either synchro into something like the Chenging or the Ice Shade Gimir synchro, which has its, you know, places in certain matchups like Cashier. It's a really good monster to be able to go into. And, you know, Chenging just has good synergy with a lot of the banishing effects that we have in this deck. But this card is a 1.5 card Link 2. And there's some really strong combos you can do with this card, which hopefully we'll showcase later when we get to do the test hands. But like even just Ice Shade, discarding Mandarin, right? Summon itself, summon the token, make Blue Tang, Anemone. Anemone summons this back, right? Link for Sea Angel. Sea Angel effect, search Battle Ocean. You know, Mandarin effect can bring itself back, or you would just link into Triangle. Anemone would add back the Mandarin, normal summon, and then link off, pitch, search trap, bring itself back, make Crystal Heart, make unaffected Argonaut, right? This card gives you a lot of gas to be able to make plays without using your normal summon, and it gives you a lot of like extra deck utility to access too, since it's a tuner and you can make a synchro, which is really, really cool. So really like this card for that. And I think it's kind of breathed new life into the deck for me anyways. And I've been having a lot of fun playing the card. Like, it's just a lot of fun to play the deck with this card. And then I play one Gamma Seal. For reasons you'll see why. I mean, it's just great against, you know, things like Pearly, getting rid of Noir, which if you can't get rid of it sometimes, you're probably losing, because the deck will have a hard time getting over it, especially if it has huge attack and defense, and it's just unaffected, right? And they're constantly putting your things back to the bottom of the deck. That's going to be tough. And also just deleting any monster for free against any matchup, like, you know, if like Super Heavy is making like Appaloosa, being able to clear that for free is always nice, or Spell Canceler, whatever it may be. Just removal that they can't really do anything about. So really like the Gamma Seal for that. And then I play one copy of Dream Shark, and this is mainly a small world bridge, and I'll explain more about this later. But other than that, it is a free water body that you can summon if all monsters you control are water, you control no water monster, or no monsters, period. So just a good extender and a great bridge. Like one of the best small world bridges you could ask for. Then we play 2 Cashier Fenrir. This is something that a friend of mine gave me the idea to add in here. I was playing Fenrir in the past in the adventure build, and I think this deck just needs this because like the end boards aren't super spectacular, and this just like gives you a little bit extra to put on your board, that if your board gets cracked, like you have at least the follow-up of a Fenrir in hand, right? And that can be really important sometimes if you just have that little extra bit of follow-up, that little bit of extra pressure to apply in those simplified game states is very helpful. It pairs very, very well with like any Marincess, right? It doesn't like conflict with anything. The only thing you can't do is search Wave, but like I would say it's a pretty good trade-off. Like Fenrir searching itself for follow-up and then having the extra interruption on top of that instead of just Argonaut. So yeah, and you're not going to draw it in every hand, so it's not like you're never searching Wave, because that's just not going to happen because you won't be drawing this all the time. But, you know, I think it'll just help out those hands every now and then that need a little bit extra something. Or those hands where, like, you're ending on just Bubble Reef, like you couldn't get a field spell or whatever. Bubble Reef plus the Fenrir, right? It just, I think, makes for overall better, more robust end field, I guess, if that makes sense. Then moving on, we have our hand traps here, which we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, right? Nothing needs to be said there. 3 copies of Ghost Ogre, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. I was playing Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, and I kind of wanted to, like, play it maybe over the Imperms, because if you draw this off of Bubble Reef, like, it doesn't feel very good at all. And I didn't really want to play Veiler, because Veiler is not that great against the Pearly deck, since they can summon things in the draw phase, and they can, like, play around Veiler, whereas Mourner can, like, beat it. And Mourner's also pretty good against, like, Cashier and stuff, too. So, but I don't know. Imperm is just, like, still, like, just good enough to, I think, warrant playing, even though you might end up drawing it sometimes off of Bubble Reef and you can't use it, technically. Although you can just use it on the next turn to break their board if they clear yours. And then we have 2 copies of the Battle Ocean. This is a card that I kind of firmly believe in playing 2 of right now. Just, like, you lose so much steam if the first one gets outed in any way, shape, or form. If they banish it off of Fenrir. If it gets, you know, hit with a Cosmic Cyclone. Right, it can be very, very tough to try to come back in those games, or you lose the field spell permanently. And also, like, seeing it more often just means you're searching your dive more often, which means you, like, have the ability to basically turn this into an E-Telly, which lets you do more with your end boards and let you, like, have more lines of play and play through more interruptions. And then the last, like, Marincess Power Trap is the 1 wave, because this card's crazy. And then we have 3 copies of Small World. You were probably wondering where Signet Mining was, but Small World right now, I think in this deck, is light years better for a couple reasons. The first main reason, though, is because we don't have to go minus for this card to get ashed, right? That was like one of the biggest drawbacks of Signet Mining, is that you have to discard a card first, and then if you get ashed, right, you lose out on the Signet Mining and the card you just drew. Whereas if you play the Small World, your opponent has to decide right then and there if they're going to ash it or not. And that means you're only losing 1 card instead of 2. So I think it's a lot more resource efficient that way. And with the addition of the Ice Shade monster now being in the main deck lineup, and things like Gamma Seal and Dream Shark, like, the bridges are, like, infinite almost, it seems like. You can turn any hand trap, whether it be Ash, Ogre, or Droll even, into any Marincess monster, because they all have 0 attack. Dream Shark also has 0 attack, and that can go into, like I said, any Marincess monster, because The only thing that would match between Dream Shark and a Marincess monster is the fact that they are waters. You can also, I believe, turn like any Marincess monster into Fenrir. Yeah, because you could go like, you know, Basilalima into the Ice Shade monster into Fenrir because they're both level 7s, right? And they don't match on anything else. So really, really cool. There's so much that can be done with this. You can also turn, you know, any hand trap into a Gamma Seal, right? Same thing, hand trap into Dream Shark into Gamma Seal. So if you draw a really bad hand trap going second, like if you top deck Droll or something going second and you have Small World, it can just become a Kaiju, right? It's really, really, really nice. Like, there's so many different bridges you can do with this. You can bridge into the Ice Shade monster in a bunch of different ways. I could go into a lot of detail talking about all the bridges, but I think this card, in my opinion for now, has, like, confidently replaced Small World in this deck for consistency. So, yeah, that is the main deck. Let's take a look at the extra deck now. And for the extra, we have just 2 copies of Sea Angel. When it's Link Summon, we search out our spell, either your Battle Ocean or your Dive. 2 copies of Blue Slug. 1 copy of Splash Mage, because still gotta have this just in case we only have like 1 way to play, 1 extender, and that's it, right? Gotta have Splash Mage for those 1 card Link 4s. Then we have 1 Crystal Heart because, you know, still ending on an unaffected monster, especially if we're not playing like the Adventure Engine. We need to back up our end board a little bit more, so we need the Crystal Heart for that. And with the Ice Shade monster, like, we have a lot more bodies to work with, so we can easily make like Triangle plus the Crystal Heart. So we can go for those unaffected lines a lot more now. 2 copies of Anemone, 1 copy of Marbled Rock, 1 copy of Triangle, 1 copy of Bubble Reef, 1 copy of Argonaut, 1 copy of Stealth Kragan because the deck needs the removal and the burn damage is also pretty good. And then we have 1 copy of Cheng-Ying and 1 copy of Gimir Azurine. You guys already know what Cheng-Ying does. If a card's banished, we can banish a card from our opponent's field and graveyard. So a couple ways we can trigger that. We can trigger it with Bubble Reef, banishing a card in the standby phase. We can clear problematic cards for have a chance to really use them. And it can also trigger it off of a Spring Girl, right? If we're, you know, we summon this, right? When we're trying to break a board, we can just do Spring Girl, you know, banish the card that maybe we discarded off of the Ice Shade monster. Cheng-Ying triggers, clear 2 things, or at least bait out a negation of theirs, and then we still have that Spring Girl on field to try to combo with, which is really, really nice. So yeah, and then the Ice Shade monster, I'll read this for you guys here. It basically says, quick effect, you can activate this effect. Face-up monsters you control cannot be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects this turn. Then, if you activate this effect in response to your opponent's card or effect activation, and your opponent has a card or cards with that name on their field and or in their graveyard, you can banish those cards. And if a card is banished by your opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard except in the damage step, you can special summon this card. So it can reborn itself out of the graveyard if your opponent banishes something. It can protect your field from destruction and being banished, which is just like huge against Cashier because going to be very hard to out certain things, especially with the attack stats on this at 3,000. And if you have Cheng-Ying out as well too, you could technically reduce their stats. Or if you have Argonaut on field, right, then they can't attack this. It makes the board a little bit difficult to deal with for some matchups, especially, you know, Cashier, which is mainly what this is in here for. Now, do you have to play both of these? No. I'm not playing Zealantis either because, yes, there are some cool combos you can do with it, but I don't know. It just hasn't been super great for me in recent testing. It hasn't really come up. Not saying that it isn't a good card because Zealantis is a great card, but I find a lot of times you do have to like go out of your way to like make like good Zealantis lines, and it's just not always like realistic to do in like actual real game situations. So I don't know. If you still want to play, you could easily cut one of the synchros and definitely still play it in there. But for now, I'm just playing without it, and I don't really miss it. Now for the side deck, we have 3 copies of Psy-Frame Gear Gamma because, you know, Droll on Resolution of Small World is pretty good. Now that's pretty much like the only thing that we could really Gamma on going first, which is not such a big deal. I guess you could also, if you went Battle Ocean, activate Dive, then you could, like, if they tried to Ash, you could Gamma them as well. But yeah, this is more so like just a high impact going second card than it is like a way to play around Droll, though you technically can do that. And of course the driver. So yeah, we played the Psy-Frame package, and I played 3 copies of DD Crow. I talked about this in my Speed Raid profile. I think this card is a pretty underrated like side deck card. Good against Branded and good against the Math Mech deck as well, like going second into Super Factorial. Then we have some back row hate, just 2 copies of Cosmic and 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, because you definitely got to keep these things on you at all times. And then we have 2 copies of Ixie's Encore for the Pearly deck, and then we have 2 copies of Goes and Match. This is mainly to, you know, hinder those decks like Pearly, because they do have light and dark monsters and other attributes as well, so this can definitely hurt them a little bit, although I really haven't much testing against this, Pearly with this card, but in theory, halfway decent. Good against Sword Soul, good against Cashier, which is a really hard matchup for this deck, and also decent against Sprite, too. Can't forget about those decks. And this also stops us from getting like hit with like a Kaiju or a Lava Golem, right? Because we can only control waters. And then last but not least, I play 1 Appointer of the Red Lotus. This was going to be the 3rd Goes and Match, but I opted to just make it this because this can basically deal with some of the same problems that Goes and can, like a Kaiju or something, or whatever it may be, a Lava Golem. Yeah, so that's it for the profile. Now let's go ahead and rip a couple test hands. Alright, I think I've done enough shuffling here, so let's go ahead and draw into our first test hand and see what we can pull off. So, opening hand, we have Droll and Lockbird, Marincess Seahorse, Marincess Pascalis, copy of Fenrir, and a copy of Spring Girl. So, I like this hand. I would say it's halfway decent going second. We do have Fenrir, we do have Droll, which, you know, can do quite a deal of damage against, like, you know, the Pearly deck and the super heavy deck, so we'll definitely take that. And we open 3 names. It's pretty strong there. So now I think what I'm going to do with this hand is start by obviously special summoning the Fenrir. We'll activate the Fenrir effect, and we'll go ahead and grab that other copy of Fenrir. So we have it for follow-up if worse comes to worse, right? Alright, so now from here, what we're going to do is go ahead and normal summon the Pascalis. We'll activate the Pascalis effect, and we'll summon out the Spring Girl. We don't really have to summon out Spring Girl, I guess. Yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter. I mean, I was going to say, if we're at like a Bahamut Shark play, which we don't really have one anyways. Okay, so from here, we're just going to start by normal summoning Pascalis. We'll activate Pascalis effect, and we'll summon out the Spring Girl here. I don't think it makes too big of a difference in what order you do this in, but I am going to go ahead and link 1 into a copy of Sea Angel, and we're going to do Chainlink 1 Sea Angel, Chainlink 2 Spring Girl, and I'll just go ahead and cut the deck here. And we're just going to mill 1, and we mill a Ghost Ogre so we don't burn them for anything, and we're just going to go ahead and secure the Battle Ocean. And, yeah, we don't need to search out die because we already have 3 extenders in hand. Well, started with 3 names, so needing dive here, you know, we really shouldn't need it in theory. So let me move those tokens out of the way. Then we'll activate the Battle Ocean way over here. Hopefully you guys can still see that. And, yeah, we'll activate Battle Ocean. And now we're going to link off the Pascalis and the Anemone. And we'll use the Battle Ocean effect. We'll equip this, and then we'll use the Anemone effect to revive the Spring Girl. And then we can link 1 into a Blue Slug, and then we can activate Blue Slug effect to go ahead and add back the Spring Girl. And then from here, we can just go ahead and link 3 into Coral Triangle. Now, I know we cannot search Wave because we already have summoned Fenrir, but I'm still going to summon the Triangle just to have it set up in Graveyard as follow-up. And we'll also use the Anemone to go ahead and add back Pascalis. And so we have that as follow-up now. And from here, we can just go ahead and special summon the Seahorse. And I guess, technically, if we want to make an unaffected Argonaut, which we probably should go for, we'll only actually end up equipping 2 here. And then we'll use the Spring Girl effect in hand to banish that Sea Angel. And then we'll go ahead and link both of these off into Crystal Heart. And then we'll link everything off into Argonaut. So we end on the unaffected Argonaut, and we can go ahead and equip the Crystal Heart, the Anemone, and the Blue Slug. We could leave the Triangle engraved, but if we want to play around like Call By or something, we could technically just equip the Triangle there instead. So we end on unaffected Argonaut with a Fenrir on board, with Droll in hand. We have Pascalis in hand as like free follow-up essentially. You know, to get us into like a Link 1 play. And yeah, that's pretty good. And if we end up negating something with the Argonaut, we can bring up the Anemone, and Anemone can try to get our plays started at the start of next turn. So I would say that's a pretty standard turn. All right, so as I go ahead and shuffle the deck up here in between test hands, I want to briefly touch on why I'm not playing the Adelaria of the June Moon and Water Barrier package. Is mainly because in all of my testing with it, I was never actually able to pull off the lock with the barrier statue just because I was getting interrupted too much, and it felt like it took too many cards to be able to consistently pull off. So I wanted to like cut those cards out of the side deck for better cards that required less setup, things like Goes in Match and things like a Pointer of the Red Lotus. So yeah, that's why I ended up not playing it, although it is still a really cool going first option. I think Adelaria is a pretty cool card in terms of just being a generic like general water monster. And it was a decent small world bridge, but you know, the Dream Shark ended up just being way better because of the stats on it. So yeah, that is enough shuffling, I believe. Let's go ahead and draw into our second test hand here. Hope we can showcase some stuff with the Ice Shade monster if we can end up drawing into it. And it looks like we do not in this particular hand. But I guess we could basically just go ahead and sub out the Gamma Seal here for the Ice Shade and just kind of show you guys how this would work out with just, you know, a Marincess and an Ice Shade, right? So we'll go ahead and activate the Ice Shade effect. We're going to go ahead and discard the Spring Girl, and we're going to go ahead and summon our level 3 token. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and link off the Ice Shade and the token straight into Anemone. And the nice thing here is that we don't have to use our normal summon for this, which is pretty good. Yeah, so like even if they were to Ghost Ogre the you know, the Coral or Gamma or whatever, right? Even if they have an effect that like removes it from the board, we can still add back the Spring Girl and normal summon it, link into like Sea Angel, search out Battle Ocean. In this case, we have Dive already. We can kind of keep playing. So yeah, it's not the end of the world if we get interrupted here, but we're gonna use the Coral to go ahead and revive the Spring Girl, and then we're gonna go ahead and link one into the Sea Angel, and we could chain block here, so we'll mill 2, and we mill Gamma Seal and an Ash, and we're gonna go ahead and search out our Battle Ocean, just like that. And from here, we're gonna go ahead and activate the Battle Ocean, and then we're gonna go ahead and link 3 rather into our copy of Coral Triangle. And then we have some chain links here. It's going to be chain link 1, Anemone to add back, chain link 2 to equip. And I am only going to equip just the 1 here, I believe. And we're going to add back the Spring Girl because I want to be able to use the Spring Girl effect later on. Now, we do already have Dive in hand, which is going to make things a lot easier here. But what we could do at this point is if we didn't have Dive, we could just normal summon the Spring Girl, right? Link into Blue Slug, and now the fact that we have Dive here is making things a little bit easier, but if we didn't have Dive, we could just normal summon the Spring Girl and link it into the Blue Slug, add it back, and then discard for the Triangle to go ahead and search the Wave, or we could add back the Spring Girl, summon the Spring Girl, make Crystal Heart, and then make an unaffected Argonaut. We wouldn't be able to search Wave in that instance because we don't have any other waters in hand to discard, but that is just something that we could do. But we have Dive, so we're going to go ahead and use the Dive. And we're going to go ahead and special summon from the deck. I'm going to summon out the Blue Tang here, because I think we'll get more value out of that than going for something like the Pascalis. And we'll dump the Bassa Lalima here to protect our end board a little bit more. And then we can normal summon the Spring Girl. And then we can link off the Blue Tang into the Slug. Then we can go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. We can Excavate 3. And we get a Battle Ocean for free. And then we can add back any Marincess card here. Well, Marincess monster. And I'll add back the Blue Tang just for follow-up. And from there, we can then link off into our Crystal Heart. And yeah, I guess we can just go ahead and activate the Triangle. I guess discarding the Blue Tang. And then we can search our Wave that way. And then we link into our Argonaut, same as we always do, and then we can use the Battle Ocean to equip everything. And just like that, we have our, you know, our end board, right? We have unaffected Aqua Argonaut, and we have 2 hand traps in hand. We have the Wave as well, and we have the Bassa Lalima. So even if they do like clear the Battle Ocean, and this is able to be affected, right? If they try to pop it, we have that little extra layer of protection again from the Bassa Lalima, which is kind of nice. So yeah, that's that test hand. Kind of want to just quickly showcase to you guys like the plays you can do with the Ice Shade. I think it actually works best, in my opinion, with like Mandarin. At least that's one of my favorite ways to do that combo. But yeah, pretty cool. So let's go ahead and shuffle the deck one more time and do one more test hand. Alright, so deck is shuffled here. Let's draw into our last test hand of the video here and see what we got. We got Ice Jade, we got Battle Ocean, we got Blue Tang, we've got Droll, and we've got Seahorse. So pretty strong looking hand. We open the Ice Shade monster again, which is really cool. We open the Droll. 6 card would be a copy of Dive. Can't complain about that. So I think what we're going to do here is lead with the Ice Shade, discard the Blue Tang, summon out token, and then we're just going to go ahead and... I mean, we technically, since we open up another normal summon, we don't have to, you know, do that Ice Shade line where we link into Anemone. What we could instead do is actually, like, Synchro here and utilize some of the Synchro monsters in our extra deck. Now, I guess it really all depends on what we're playing against, what Synchro would be best to go for. In this case, I'm just going to go for the Ice Shade Synchro, and we'll summon this right here. Make sure we have enough zones open to do everything else. And now we can just freely protect from Ghost Ogre. So we're going to go ahead and normal summon Blue Tang, and we're going to activate Blue Tang's effect here. And we'll go ahead and send a Mandarin here, since we already have access to the Seahorse Engrave. So yeah, then we'll go ahead and link 1 into our Blue Slug. We'll go Chainlink 1 Blue Slug targeting the Seahorse, Chainlink 2 Blue Tang. Let's see what we get here. We get Wave for free, which means we're just making the triangle for follow-up now. And then we add the Seahorse back. Then we special summon the Seahorse. Then we link off the Seahorse into the Sea Angel. And Sea Angel can be your Angle or your Devil. And we're going to go ahead and add a copy of Dive. I'm just saying things now at this point. So yeah, we'll add the Dive. And if we didn't already have Battle Ocean, of course we'd add Battle Ocean. I think the Battle Ocean is pretty much always going to take precedence over the Dive. And in most hands, it's not always the case, but, you know, general rule of thumb. So now we can go ahead and link 2 into a copy of the Anemone. We'll use Battle Ocean to go ahead and equip. And let's see here. How do I want to do this? We can use Dive now to go ahead and special summon from deck. And we already have Mandarin Engrave. I suppose we could, like, summon Spring Girl here. We could also summon Paskless to be able to have set up Engrave for, you know, the free ability to recycle. But if we're going to go the route for Paskless, it honestly might be better just to wait then to use the Dive. Yeah, you know what? We're going to wait to use Dive here. I think this will make more sense. So we'll use the Coral, and we're going to go ahead and revive the Blue Tang. And then we're going to go ahead and link 2, or well, link 3 rather. Sorry, I keep mixing that up. Link 3 into Triangle, and then we're going to activate Field Spell as Chainlink 2, Anemone as Chainlink 1. Anemone will add back the level 4 here. And now we can go ahead and activate Dive. And Dive can summon out the Paskless here, now that we have an actual Marincess monster in hand. Where if I can find the Paskless there. And yeah, this will go ahead and activate its effect, and we'll bring out the Blue Tang. And it's important we don't want to block both of our zones here because we want to be able to use the Mandarin Engrave. So a couple things we could do here. We could either make, you know, like a rank 4 right now. This is where, like, if you were playing Bahamut Shark, you could overlay for Bahamut, right? Detach summon Toad, and then Mandarin summon itself, and then link off the Mandarin and the Bahamut into Crystal Heart, and then make your Argonaut unaffected, right? So you'd have the Argonaut unaffected, the Toad, and the Ice Shade, right? You could do that. Or you could make Kragan right now. Like, that's another line that you could do. But I think right here, because, like, there's no real super benefit to making Kragan. I think we're just going to go ahead and link these off into the Crystal Heart. And we just save the Mandarin as Extender. So I guess you could also maybe have sent Basalima there. But getting the Paskless out of the deck, you know, saves us from having to use the Mandarin, so we can use it next turn. And it also gives us a free way to add back, like, Wave at the start of the next turn, which will apply a ton of pressure having Wave immediately. Then we're just going to go ahead and link 4 into either the Bubble Reef or the Argonaut. In most cases, it's going to be the Argonaut going first. And then we'll equip all of these. And, yeah, so we end on the Ice Shade monster, who gives us the ability to protect our monsters from being banished or destroyed. We have the Battle Ocean, making our Argonaut unaffected by our opponent's card effects at 4,300. We have Wave, we have Droll, and we have plenty of forms of follow-up in the graveyard. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to end the test hand portion of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe. If you did, if you want to see more content, definitely consider subscribing. And as always, Winterkill signing out, guys. We'll see you in the next one. And last but not least, a huge thank you goes to our current Divine level channel members who are Green, Pony Start, Cadillacs, HG8 Cyber, and Misfit. Thank you guys so much as always for extremely kind and very generous support of the channel.